Hey everybody, it's the Sheriff, and we're here again with another GLC review. Today we're looking at Mega Evolution. So as always, we're going to go through the entire list and rank cards that are applicable 1 through 5, 5 being the best. And then at the very end, we'll have my take of the best types in Gym Leader Challenge. So, there is a lot of good stuff in this set, so let's get started. First up, we're going to look at this Executor, and it reads for 1 energy, 30 damage, and then during the next turn, this Pokemon takes 30 less damage. But then for 3 colorless energy, it does 60, and then 30 more for each grass energy attached to this Pokemon. So it's basically Zarude, but it is stronger because it's 30 more damage instead of 20, but it's on a stage 1. So there are pros and cons to it, but paired with Venusaur or, spoiler alert, Meganium, this is a very good card. So I'm going to give Executor a 4, a very solid attacker. And I will say it pairs better with Torterra instead of Zarude because he's an evolution. So something to keep in mind. And you have the broken Execute that just comes back from your discard for free. So then we have this Tangrowth. Has an attack for 30, heal 30 from this Pokemon. Probably not using this. But then it has a second attack that says it's 4 energy, but 2 energy if you're running it in that deck. 120 damage. If it has at least 2 extra energy, then it does 140 more. So with Venusaur or Meganium, for 3 energy, you're doing 260 damage. So this guy is kind of absurd and just knocks out everything. Doesn't care about Okie Dogie, doesn't care about the whale, any whale for that matter. This guy hits huge numbers. So it's definitely not as needed, I would say, because things like your Torterra can hit these numbers, but still a very solid option, so I'm going to give Tangrowth a 3. Then we have the Star of the Grass show here with Meganium, and it has the ability Wild Growth. Each basic grass energy attached to your Pokemon provide 2 grass energy instead, and this does not stack. So this is literally Venusaur's ability. However, Meganium has less retreat cost and a better attack for the same amount of energy. So Meganium is a straight upgrade from Venusaur, which is great. Because Venusaur is already super strong. So I'm going to give Meganium a 5 because it is just that good. It's kind of crazy. And then we have the Shuckle, which is interesting. It has this ability once per turn. If this Pokemon has any grass energy attached, you can heal 30 damage from one of your Pokemon. So maybe in a tanky heal grass deck, this guy is kind of cool. Just something to keep in mind, but I do think he is a little too situational, so I'm going to give him a 2. Then we have the Celebi. Very interesting card. For a single grass time travel, search your deck for up to 3 in any combination of grass Pokemon and stadium cards, reveal them, and put them in your hand. So very strong opener, and we'll get to why this is applicable with a new stadium. So kind of useless in the long run, like after turn 2, right? but a very strong opening Pokemon. So I'm gonna give Celebi a 3, which is actually gonna do it for grass. But there's a lot of stuff, a lot of cool things. So we're gonna go to fire next, and first up we have this Volcanion, which is interesting. For one, fire, your opponent's Pokemon is burned. But then for 3 fire energy, you do 130 damage, and then you put 2 fire energy attached into your hand. So hitting 130 is your magic number most of the time. With a muscle band, you're hitting 150, and that is one hit KOing a lot of things. I think like every single basic, except for the Doge. But this Volcanion is interesting because it does protect your energy in a sense that, you know, you get to like bring it back to your hand, and then you can use that energy with a welder next turn, or use it with your Salazzle if you're playing that. And then you can accelerate it back to another attacker with something like Embor. So he is an interesting card. I don't know if I would play this over the other Volcanion that accelerates energy, but I do think he is a strong option, so I'm going to give him a 3. And then we have this new Cinderace, which has this ability, if this Pokemon is in your hand during setup, you can just use him as your face-down active Pokemon. So it cheats evolution, which, if this sounds familiar, it is on a Luxray, and even before that it was on a Talonflame, which was a very strong card. Those two cards don't see a lot of play in GLC right now, but I think it is a very strong ability. And he does have this really cool attack where for a single energy he does 50 damage, and then you search for 3 basic energy cards and attach them to your benched Pokemon in any way that you like. So very strong opener to just accelerate all your energy into play. This dude has free retreat as well, 160 HP, so you're probably getting this attack off at least a couple times. So I think he is quite strong. So I'm going to give Cinderace a 4. I think the payoff is quite nice on this dude. But that is going to do it for fire. So next we will go to water, which first we're going to look at this interesting Klotzer. Has the ability, once during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from the active to your bench. So when you retreat this guy or switch him with a switch card, but he has to be in the active spot first, you get to attach 2 basic water energy from your hand to this Pokemon. So super strong to accelerate energy. And then for 3 water, it does 210, and you discard all energy from this Pokemon. So 210 is just like crazy strong. This guy isn't nearly as good as the Dolphin, Palafin, but I think he's still very strong. And actually, I do think you would play him in the Palafin deck, funnily enough, because you don't really play energy accelerants, and so this is another option to have just this giant KO on another body. So it's really funny because you could you could have Palafin and this guy, and you can like switch him out, accelerate your energy to him, but then go and attack with Palafin. It's interesting. So I'm gonna give Klotzer a 3. I think he is a solid attacker. It might be awkward at some points, but still a good option. And then I do want to point out this Frostmoth, which has an attack for a single energy, and it does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So A nice spread option, I think, in maybe like a more lower to the ground water spread deck that doesn't rely on energy acceleration. You could play this guy over the Frostmoth that accelerates energy. And, you've got like the single strike deck that could play this. Just another option to spread that damage around. So I think he's interesting. I will give Frostmoth a 3. I think he just fits in a very specific deck, but I think he is a solid option to that archetype. So that's going to be it for water. We're going to move on to lightning, and we have this new Raikou, which for 2 lightning, it does 30 damage, and then if you have 4 lightning energy in play, this does 90 more damage. So you already have 2 on him, so you have that covered, and then you need 2 more, which you can easily get with all of your lightning energy accelerants, right? With the sheep and the eel. So I think this is easily doable. You're doing 120, which falls short on some very important KOs, but you can easily boost that with things like a muscle band or electro power. So it's not as bad as you think. Specifically in lightning, you just have like 1 extra out to boost your damage. So I think he is a solid attacker, more low to the ground, which sometimes you need. But there are, I mean, I would probably still just run the, what is it, the Thunderous that attacks for 2, but it does 140. I'd probably just still run that over this guy. So I'm going to give Raikou a 2. I don't think he's the worst, but I do think there are just better options. That's actually going to do it for lightning. There is not anything worth talking about other than that. But we do have this Alakazam line, which is interesting. You have Kadabra and Alakazam that both have kind of the same ability called Psychic Draw. When you play this Pokemon, when you evolve this Pokemon from your hand, Kadabra lets you draw 2 cards, and Alakazam you draw 3 cards. So this is interesting because it sometimes can help you hand match with the boulder. So that's interesting. Alakazam has an attack for a single energy, and then you put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon for each card in your hand. So unfortunately you can't play cards if you want to boost this damage, which is awkward. But most of the time you're like doing like what, 80, 100 damage possibly. If you really wanted to, you could pair this with, like, imagine like a Colress, for 10. That'd be kind of wild. So I don't think it really has the best attack per se, but the abilities are cool for draw. Psychic doesn't necessarily need that though, because you have Gallade and you have Xatu, which I would just rather play both of those. But Alakazam is an interesting option, so I'm going to give him a 3. Then we have the interesting Grumpig, which has the ability, when you evolve this Pokemon from your hand, you get to look at the top 4 cards of your deck and attach any number of basic energy to your Pokemon in any way that you like. So it's a one and done ability. Maybe in like a stage 1 Psychic deck, this could fit. But I would much rather just be playing my Malamar and my Xatu for my energy acceleration. and like even I'd rather even play like a Crispin because you have dark energy with the monkey. So I think Grumpig is a 2, but it is an interesting ability. If it was like Metang, this card would be like absurd, right? Like imagine you get to do this just every single turn. Like this would be a 5 for sure. But um, okay, and then we have this Xerneas actually, where the first attack you search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. So actually super cool for setting up. And I think that's all you're using it for. Its other attack, 120 for 3, is like fine. It's not great. It's not terrible. So interesting card. I'll give Xerneas a 3. Very strong for setup. We then are going to fighting, which is the most interesting type of this set, in my opinion. The big head honcho that is the most game-changing is this Lunatone. Once during your turn, an ability, if you have Solrock in play, you can discard a basic fighting energy to draw 3 cards. So fighting finally has draw power. It needs a couple requirements in order to pull off, but I think you can do this pretty consistently. And it's by far the best thing fighting has got. So I am going to give Lunatone a 5. This card is fantastic for fighting and is going to improve the consistency of fighting a lot, which is what it needed because fighting had everything else going for it. Some of the best attackers, some really strong energy acceleration. So, yes, this guy's awesome. So you got to pair it with a Solrock. So we'll look at this Solrock specifically, but I don't think it matters too much which one you play. This is probably your best option. For one fighting, it does 70 damage, but you have to have Lunatone on your bench, otherwise it doesn't do anything, and it's not affected by weakness or resistance. So this is a nice attack if you really need to. Like, look at Fan Rotom and how much work that thing puts with 70 damage, and you know, you've got Muscle Band and Strong Energy to boost this damage. And the new Fighting Boost Shake. So, this attack is actually not terrible if you really need to use it. It's, you know, KOing a lot of basics who need to evolve. So, I think this probably is your best Solrock. I'm going to give him a 3. You gotta pair Lunatone with one of them, and he is serviceable. We're then going to look at this interesting Marshadow. For 2 fighting, it does 60 damage. If your opponent's Pokemon is knocked out by this attack, prevent all damage and effects done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. So, super interesting. I don't know how many times you're going to pull this off. I think he's actually interesting in like fighting spread, maybe like with Hitmons or like the Sandagast Ting-Lu kind of thing, where you're kind of chipping at them and then you come and finish this off and you kind of get to stall for a turn. So that's kind of cool. He is very interesting in the right deck. I think he could be very strong, and just like the Solrock, you can easily boost these numbers to make it easier to get a KO. So I'm going to give Marshadow a 4. If you pull this off, very strong. I will point out this Garganacl. has the ability Power Salt, and attacks used by your fighting Pokemon do 30 more damage to the active Pokemon. So, I mean, if you want to boost your Marshadow with this guy, you totally can. However, uh, there I think are two other Garganacles that are just stronger than this, so I'm going to give it a 2. Next up, we have my boy Crawdont, which is fantastic. I love this. Love this guy. I might be a little biased, but um, he's really hard to play because there's no Dark Corphish. But spoiler alert: next set, it will be a lot easier to play this guy. Plus, you have Zoroark if you really wanted to. So there is that. So stage 1, for 3 energy, it does 130 damage. But if it has any damage counters on it, it can be used for a single dark energy. So slap a rainbow energy on this thing, and you are suddenly hitting for 130 for 1 energy, which is super cool and very good. So I'm gonna give Crawdon a 4. Very, very good. But I think you gotta wait for next set to play this guy. But definitely keep a copy of this guy, because he's gonna be good. Okay. And that's it for Dark. So next we're gonna go to Metal, which we have this Dialga, which is interesting. For 3 metal, it does 80 damage. You can shuffle all energy attached to this Pokemon into your deck to do 80 more. So 160 for 3 is quite good. You do have to shuffle that energy back into your deck, but sometimes that isn't a bad thing because you can accelerate it back out with Matang. So it has a little bit of synergy there, which is super cool. It preserves your energy in a way. So yeah, I think he's interesting. I'm going to give him a 3. He is totally fine. That's it for Metal then. And very last Pokemon to talk about is going to be a new Lopunny, which for a single energy does 50 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. If you want to play colorless spread / snipe, I think this is a good inclusion in that. Otherwise, not that good. So in that specific archetype, I think it's a 3. Anything else, I would skip this card. And that's going to do it for all the Pokemon. Let's get into trainers now. First up, we have Acerola's Mischief, which you can only use this if your opponent has 2 or fewer prize cards remaining. Oh, this actually is terrible. Choose one of your Pokemon in play. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage from effects of attacks and damage done to this Pokemon from your opponent's EX. Okay, this card is useless. Another reprint of Boss's Orders. We have the... What is this called? Dangerous Ruins? Is that the translation? I don't know. Has the... a stadium that has the effect whenever either player puts a non-dark basic Pokemon onto their bench, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Pretty good. So you can play this in your dark deck to help fix numbers, which is pretty cool. It helps with that double turbo energy that is so valuable in that deck. So yeah, it's pretty good. I don't. You you might want to just like play like Frozen City instead, um, for your Spiritomb. But I think this is a solid option, just to get a little chip damage in there to fix your numbers. So I'm gonna give Dangerous Ruins a 3. Reprint of Energy Switch. Okay, we have this Fighting Gong. More fighting goodies. You search your deck for a basic fighting Pokemon or a fighting energy. So it's Fog Crystal, but for fighting Pokemon. So this card is ridiculous and very versatile. Adds a great consistency to your fighting deck. You can search for an energy to use with your Lunatone. Um, so I'm going to give Fighting Gong a 5. Iron Defender is an item where during your opponent's next turn, all your metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks. So it's kind of the reverse of Electro Power. Instead, your Pokemon are taking 30 less instead of your Pokemon doing 30 more. So in a tanky metal deck, I think this does fit. But sometimes not particularly needed. You have some really strong tools that just like do this and you can have them stick. So I'm going to give Iron Defender a 3. I do think it's a good card. It could, you know, be the make or break from your Pokemon getting knocked out. But yeah, it's a good card. All right, the real star of this set, Lily's Determination. You shuffle your hand in your deck, then you draw 6 cards. Great, it's Cynthia, which is, you know, a phenomenal supporter. Super, super good. But there is an additional effect. If you have exactly 6 prize cards remaining, you draw 8 cards instead. So, early game, you shuffle, draw 8, which is like absurdly strong. And then later, you're still shuffling and drawing 6, which is still very, very good. This is like the best supporter Pokemon has ever printed. If I could give a score higher than 5, I probably would, which I could because this is my video. But yeah, Lily's Determination is going to be a 5. You should be playing this card in every single one of your decks. It is so good. We next have Lieutenant Surge's Bargain, which is a hilarious card. Okay, ask your opponent if both players may draw a prize card. If yes, you both draw a prize card. If no, you draw 4 cards. This card is super funny. uh, yeah, I think it's just hilarious. I'm gonna give it a 3. I mean, like drawing 4, like a lot of people are like doing this already with like Colress's experiments. So like you're seeing about the same amount of cards and you're keeping them, or you just get a prize card. So maybe in the right deck, like a deck that is faster than your opponent, this fits. I think it's really funny though. I'm gonna give it a 2, maybe a 3, but I mean, you know, it's fine. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Lush Forest. Here we go. Another broken card out of the set. Each player's grass Pokemon can evolve into another grass Pokemon during the turn they play those Pokemon, except during your first turn. So it's Forest of Giant Plants, kept a bit in check. This card is so strong. This is why I mentioned the Celebi, because on your turn you can search for like 2 evolutions, and this lush forest, and then you can search for, and then you can use like an Arizu or something to search for three more evolutions, and then you just explode uh, turn two, and you just get all your guys into play. And once grass is fully set up, it is very, very hard to take down. So this stadium is absurd. It's definitely a 5 broken card. This card is nuts. You should be playing this card. We have Mysterious Garden, which is also another new stadium. Once during a player's turn, that player may discard an energy to draw cards until they have as many cards in their hand as they have Psychic Pokemon in play, as if Psychic needed more support. Um, However, I don't think this is like super necessary. I do think it can be good in to help with like Iron Boulder, but like Psychic is already so consistent, and I think like Dimension Valley, you just would rather have that in play. But I still think this is a very, very strong stadium. So I'm uh like this effect was like in Fusion Strike decks, right? With Mew and Genesect. So and like that deck was broken. So uh yeah, I still think this stadium is very, very strong. I'm gonna give it a 4. You can't go wrong with playing this card. It's still very good. All right, reprint of Pokemon Center Lady. Premium Power Pro. Item where you, during this turn, attacks used by your fighting Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So it's Electro Power, but for fighting, this card is great. It helps fix numbers. It's very, very good. Aggressive card. It's going to be a 5. And then some more reprints. And then we have Surfing Beach, which is a stadium where once during each player's turn, that player may switch their active water Pokemon with one of their benched water Pokemon. So I think that this card specifically boosts the Palafin deck significantly. And, this card is very good with the Klotzer, right? Has huge synergy with that thing. So I think this is a phenomenal boost to the Palafin, the Palatoad deck, if you will. You're usually playing the Toad. Um, but yeah, this is awesome, and like it prevents a lot of your fat water Pokemon from getting stuck. Super, super cool. So I'm gonna give Surfing Beach a 4. Very, very strong stadium, able to pivot. And is very good with Frostmoth. You don't have to rely on like Back's Caliber as much with this card. Um, so yeah. Then we have Suspicious Clock, which I guess pairs with. It's supposed to pair with like the Grumpig and like Alakazam line and stuff, but I don't know. You devolve one of your evolved Psychic Pokemon by returning any number of evolution cards back into your hand. They can't re-evolve this turn. So this is basically like de-evolution spray, but like most cases like could be like worse because it's less flexible. Or sorry, not de-evolution spray. I mean scoop up net. Um, but well, it's interesting because with this you don't have to like get rid of like a float stone or something that's attached to your Pokemon. So it's not as bad as I thought, but I still think you would just rather play something like Scoop Up Net. Um, I will say this. Well, that just plays. de-evolution spray anyway. In like a Zatu, Natu snipe deck. Yeah, it's basically like kind of better de-evolution spray just for psychic Pokemon, so I guess it's an upgrade in that sense, but I don't know. It's gonna be a 2 for me. It's not the worst thing, but yeah. Okay. And then Wally's Compassion. It involves Mega Evolution EX, so non-applicable. Okay, that's gonna be it for our cards. I don't think I missed anything. Okay, now let's look at those types. Okay. We have a couple changes. Psychic, I think, is still by far the best deck in the format. Followed by Colorless, still just so strong, so consistent. Even with the bans of the energy, it's just so good. A couple of changes. I have moved Dark down to B. I do not think Dark is in a good spot. I don't think it's like terrible, but it has seen better days. I don't think it's in a good spot right now. I think it's gonna get some love next set, so look out for that. But I did drop down Dark to B tier. Um, these four stayed the same, and then I did actually move Fighting up to A tier with all of the goodies it got in this set. It got so many goodies, so I think it is gonna be a top contender way more often. Metal and Fire still down here. I feel like they're just so close. Um, Metal is probably better than Dark. Yeah, I feel like Fire's like almost there, but I don't know. And then of course Fairy down here in C. So that is gonna do it for our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you disagree with any of those takes, let me know in the comments. If I forgot any uh, cards that I didn't talk about, also let me know in the comments, and I will have that discussion with you there. Um, yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. Love you. Bye.